Good morning. As I had mentioned in the previous message about from 2009 about some gays in a public music system singing Popes and Golden accusation, really it was actually an ongoing matter that had been occurring for years, except the Golden detail was different. Way back as far as about 94, back during the time, some beginning sometime after I started spending a lot of nights on the Incarnation Church property. Whenever I go into a grocery store, I think mostly always Publix back then, is that it wasn't anything actually controlled by the public store, but most every time gays would get onto the music system singing the Pope argument, uh, very like church chorus, and then others just multiple usual kind of singing. Sometimes there were women singing, but mostly it was all a gay argument. And I remember a particular day, probably back in '94, when I was walking along the road. I had experienced the same irritation again because it's always linked to accusing that I did something with another man earlier in my life. So I got on a payphone one day and called the Rectory of Incarnation. And an old man answered the phone, who a kind of shrill voice, whom I'm mostly sure I recognized from getting into the traffic broadcasting harassing. And I said, I was very irritated. I'm normally very polite, but on the particular morning I was on the particular day I was irritated. And I said something like, um, why are you? I identify myself, and I say, well, how come you're having people get into the music systems of stores that I entered, saying that I'm the Pope? And he said, like acting like he didn't know anything about it. And I said, instead of authorizing people to be singing like that, do you know what the name of the Pope is? And he said, "Oh, Jean Paul." And I got so irritated, and uh, when he continued to act like he didn't even know what I was talking about, I said, "You know darn well what I'm talking about," and then he hung up the phone. So anyway, it was the one and only occasion that I ever called the Rectory back then, and it was a difficulty. I was having to be outside. I was always blared at by the traffic sound. At night, oftentimes it was really an echoing crescendo. And at the same time, when I'd be indoors in a grocery store, one of the only places I was ever able to be indoors in is they so often started elaborate kind of singing, using gays sounding so pleased and everything, as though they're, as though it was a matter of officialdom, But it really wasn't. And another instance was before I knew much of any corruption pertaining to the Catholic Church back then. I worked on some very basic amateur kind of studies against Nazism and whatever other kind of threats that I might encounter hearing in traffic and from studying and worrying earlier in life. And I put together some notes, written notes, and I thought, I've been separate of the irritated call I've already mentioned. There was a time I was thinking, I've been spending nights on the church, and the principal of the school has nicely helped me with money, so a number of times without me even asking. I'd, of course, always be concerned for the safety of the kids, hoping that they're, going to have happy and secure futures. Why don't I make an appointment to the rectory and offer them some of my documentation and you know, see if maybe it would help them against the possibility of there being renewed Hitler kind of threats. So one day I went to the rectory and I like I said, it was very amateurish stuff, and it included some basic kind of alphanumerical chronological speculations. And I left it with the rectory, but when I retrieved the stuff about a week later, I found that I had encountered some opposition instead that was really arrogant and started getting me a little followed by a bit more harassment. On another day, probably also in '94, I made another appointment to actually visit with meet with a priest in the rectory, and a concern. I decided to detail some of the concerns in person. And so anyway, I started to when I arrived to the rectory, an immediate drawback was that the particular priest that I was assigned to speak to was a very gay mannerism, whom I wouldn't have wanted to talk to about anything. And then when I started to detail that a concern, including that I was worried that there had been indications that something was being put into space that might have an anti-personnel capability against our people, he was very flippant about it, didn't care, and uh, and so I just absolutely, completely abbreviated everything that I was going to say by concluding. And in case you're wondering, I drink beer and I smoke cigarettes. So anyway, the particular priest says, very, very, very gay mannerism, says, well, the Pope says we shouldn't drink, and the Pope says we shouldn't smoke, so we don't do that. And he offered to give me a couple of $5 grocery store coupons. So anyway, I was glad to go ahead and conclude the meeting and proceeded to leave. And anyway, I do understand that sometimes there's difficulties about having drinks and smoking, but a lot of us that have the drinks, and I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I quit back in 2002. That I don't encourage anybody. I don't encourage people to smoke, but I also don't persecute them about it. So anyway, I'm just saying that when there were really a lot of serious concerns, that the particular priest that I spoke to didn't wasn't concerned at all, and so it basically resolved any feeling of me worrying that maybe I was being negligent and not trying to talk to anybody about anything. So uh, the concerns against the possibility of there being resurgent Hitler activity, even in our own nation, had been very worrisome, and unfortunately, various kind of threats like that occur in traffic still. This continues to only hope that everyone's all right. And sometime after, also in '94, there was another day. I had been kind of rebuffed because one of the reasons I was rebuffed was obviously I was looking kind of bummy being on the road, and my work was very amateur handwritten. Uh, so I had been turned away from the federal building also, and one day I thought, well, you would have been against the Hitler threats back in the 1940s if you had been alive also. So why not visit a synagogue? So I got on a bus and I rode to North Geneva Road, where there's a synagogue, and I walked in and spoke to a nice old lady who explained that their rabbi was on vacation. So I said, anyway, I didn't have much of anything, but I wanted to offer them the paperwork that I had if they might be able to use it. So anyway, on my way out, I saw that the lady was partly not joking, but of nice concern, indicating the rabbi was on vacation. But as I was leaving, I noticed a man with athletic shoes and old man's feet up on the desk, and I guess that well, he's kind of on vacation, but maybe partly a working vacation. So anyway, she suggested that I visit the community center on the other side of Geneva. So I was briefly into the Flanzer Community Center, and a young rabbi there listened to what I had to say courteously, and then looked to me and says, "What you have, we can't use." So anyway, I guess at the time I was thinking that despite my humble condition in life, that he was being considerate, and I respectfully considered some of the relics that they had on display there, a large scroll and other items, and really sincerely hope that there won't be anything of the Holocaust occurring ever again. And of course, those kind of concerns continue though these days, even more when you consider what's happening in Ukraine. Hopefully, the war there will end soon, that it won't turn into a nuclear war, and hopefully there hasn't been any kind of Holocaust activity. So anyway, on behalf of all of our good people, Understanding that there is controversy of leadership pertaining to the Catholic Church. As a matter of fact, recently, a recent concern is an old man who threatened to be martyring U.S. Catholics. And of course, there's still concern on behalf of Jewish people, hoping that they are being persecuted elsewhere also, while others remind that there had been some Jewish corruption, publicity about the Holocaust also. Anyway, I hope again that everyone's having a good day, and I was just reminded that this work and these concerns on behalf of our people have been ongoing for a lot of years now, and I do believe that for a time, at least just a couple of years, that I could be a good influence and a good representation for the people here in Congress. Thanks. Have a good day.